Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How was your day?
Very nice. And yours?
Oh, that's nice to hear. It was a long one, and I think it's still ongoing, but so far so good. I can't complain. Okay, so for the sake of people that have already started coming in, let's just start.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, great. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Mirit Hoffman. I'm an elder law lawyer and a gerontologist. And my focus is mainly helping senior citizens when they reach significant crossroads in their life. Mainly, we're talking about wills, preparing durable powers of attorney, guardianship issues, and prenups or financial agreements when somebody reaches second or third relationships, which is always my favorite thing. And from my broad exposure with this age group, I realized that there are a lot of other issues that should be discussed that are not talked about enough, or if at all. And so I have created this podcast called Golden Topics, Significant Crossroads for Seniors, where I discuss all kinds of things with other professionals that deal and help with mature adults or senior citizens. And today we're going to be talking about purposeful living and aging. And here with me is Sarah Hiller-Bersson, who is a licensed clinical social worker, a physiotherapist, and also the founder of the Center for Purposeful Living and Aging. I hope I got that right, Sarah. But first of all, thank you so much for being here, and please introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Sarah Hiller-Bersson. I'm a clinical social worker. I offer psychotherapy. I've been doing this now since 2011, but I actually have been in the field of geriatrics for over 30 years. And so I've built up a practice, and now that I'm expanding now into Israel. So I wanted to kind of meet everyone and get to know Merit and introduce myself to everyone. So thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. And Mazal Tov for coming to Israel. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so let's start. Tell me about your center a little bit and your experience working with mature adults, as you say.
My center is really just a therapy practice, and really we focus on working with mature adults really at this stage of life. You know, as people enter, I always call it like there's three stages of life where you're young and learning, and middle stage where you're like aggressively trying to kind of build yourself up. And then there's the third stage, which is kind of like enjoying that process, enjoying what you have accomplished, enjoying what you have learned, the wisdom, the experiences. And a lot of times what I had found with working with older adults is that they start as they transition into this third stage, the ability to identify self-worth, the ability to identify how their choices in life are positively impacting their environment is very challenging. And because of that, they tend to have they tend to have a negative feedback on how they're experiencing life, and this turns into depression. So I work with individuals to get them to kind of reassess how they're engaging in life, reinterpret how they're engaging in life, and make themselves kind of think differently so that they can see life through a different lens, and pretty much identify that purpose and live that purpose, that meaningful life that everyone really deserves to have.
Sounds beautiful, actually. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your style of practice, what kind of perspectives you bring to therapy, and if you have examples, that would always be wonderful.
Okay, yes. So I started working in rehab centers, as I said, about 15 years ago. And it was very rewarding because a lot of times I'll meet people and they'll kind of come up and they'll say, like, well, I don't have a way to kind of interact with my world in a way that's meaningful, that gives me purpose. You know, when we're younger, we tend to, especially in our second stage of life, we tend to take on roles that that are very much so impactful in the environment, and it's overt. And we see as a mom, it's obvious how we're helping our environment, our world, out the people we love. At work, it's so obvious how we're helping our environment. But then once we get on to this third stage, it's not as obvious, but it's there. And we have to really understand how it is in this in a different way. For example, I had a patient who just had retired, and she was quite depressed about it because she was very impactful. She had helped college students get get scholarships, and so then she retired, and she was depressed because she said how she says my life is it doesn't really have much meaning. I'm not positively impacting my environment in any way. I'm not there's no purpose to it. So we worked together, and she identified how she loved animals, and so she decided she wanted to train her dog how to be a therapy dog, and they took this therapy class together in a nursing facility, and it ends up she ended up uh, she ended up going to this class. The dog failed the therapy the therapy class, but they loved her, and the nursing facility got to know her and actually said, "Can you work with us just as a receptionist for like three days a week, 4 hours a day?" And she started to do this, and she became part of this nursing facility, and really. And she said, although she was getting paid, and it was nice to have money for manicures, and she even saved up for a trip to Greece, which was really exciting for her. She said it was one of the most meaningful parts of her of any. It was one of the most meaningful jobs she ever had, because what that job really offered was connection to other people, was really giving to other people, was and that was what was so needed, and really she found her purpose because she recognized how she was able to cheer up other residents, and she found a lot of meaning in her work, and it was a really positive experience for her, and because of that she became she what happens is, once you identify how you positively impact your environment, what ends up happening is you judge yourself favorably, and when you judge yourself favorably, you end up having positive thoughts, and those positive thoughts create positive emotions, which puts you in a very good mood. And that's really what we're talking about how we perceive, how we experience life, and how that experience, how we process it, how it makes us feel emotionally, and what kind of mood it puts us in. Our mood is so important. Our mood is really how we experience, and the lens that we use to interpret our life. So if we're in a good mood, we're going to have a good day. And if we're in a bad mood, we're going to have a bad day. So our mood is really essential. And we work on how to understand our thoughts, how to focus our thoughts and modify our thoughts so that we have more positive perspective, positive thoughts, and how we maintain a better mood, and how we improve that mood.
That's really cool. I was just thinking about it. I had a client, she had been in retirement for about a year or two. Her husband was just about to go into retirement. And I was talking to them about, legal issues, and she said, "Oh, my life is so busy. I have so many things to do." This was pro-corona, of course, because a lot of things stopped during corona. But she went to lectures, and she went to exercise class, and she was like super, super busy. She actually color coded her schedule. It was really awesome to see. Um, and then I approached the husband and said, "Okay, and what are your plans?" And he was like, "My plan is to do nothing. That's my plan. My plan is not to have to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning for once in the last 40 years. Like, that's what I've been doing. And that is my plan." And I was like, "I don't know if that's such a good plan. I mean, that's great for like a week." And then I met them 6 months later. And she was still her bubbly self, and she was like all over the place, and she was like super busy. And he sort of started deteriorating. And when I spoke to her, she was like, "Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my husband. Like he's remembering, but his memory's not 100%." And like he
Yeah.
started deteriorating. And I asked her, like, what do you guys do during the day? She goes, like, "I'm super busy, and he doesn't want to come and join with me any of this stuff. So he's mostly at home. He's sometimes," she said, "the last couple of weeks he was actually depressed. He didn't even want to get up. He didn't want to get dressed." And I
Mm-hmm.
think that makes a big difference. Like if you get up for a purpose, if you fill up your day, and it doesn't have to be the whole day. I mean, you are retired, you can take a break. But if you have like snippets of things that you need to do every single day, and there is a purpose for getting up, and there is a reason to do something, and you have to do it. And people, and maybe, it could be even something silly, it could be even teaching your grandchild, I don't know, math, something that
Mhm.
makes you have to get up, and somebody's dependent on you for that. It makes a big difference. It makes a big
Yes.
difference to your well-being.
Right. Instinctually, I like how you said it. I didn't know if that was a good idea because really what we see so many times is when people finish working, they just want to take a break. And that's great. Yeah, a week break, a month, but not as a plan for your future. Because really what is one of the most important parts of living a meaningful life, living a life that has purpose is connection to other people, right? If we're sitting at home, after a while, the four walls around us are not very stimulating, and we start to have darker thoughts about life. And
Right.
those thoughts create the emotions. The darker thoughts create emotions of what's the point of life? This is so depressing. This is, I don't. There's no point, right? And that seeps right into your mood. And that's what you carry around with you. Your mood is what you carry around with you. So it's really important to engage. It's really important to stimulate because anytime we engage, we're thinking about it. And we're thinking about, oh, it's so lovely to be with someone. It's so lovely to have lunch with that person. Positive thought, positive emotion of happiness, joy, emotional connection to other people, better mood. Oh, taking a class. Oh, this is so exciting. I love to learn about, art history, right? Positive thought, positive emotion, positive mood, right? And then we have that bigger picture too of what does my life mean? What's the purpose of my life, right? And if the purpose is just to sit there, no, that's not really going to have a good narrative that we also kind of think about when we're sitting in our lazy boy chair, just in our pajamas at 4 p.m.,
Right.
right? So when we start to engage and we're so busy, we're saying, I'm happy with my life. I'm busy. I enjoy the elements of my life, positive thought, positive emotion, positive mood, right? And then we just continue on in that positive cycle. We're always, I want to point out also, we're always judging ourselves. We're always thinking we have 60,000 thoughts a day. If you sleep 8 hours, that's a thought a second, right? And so most thoughts have an emotion to them, other than, like even like even the weather actually, even the weather is it's raining, sadness. It's sunny, oh happy. So and all of that sets into your mood. There's even a whole disorder called seasonal affective disorder related to just the weather. So we really have to be very much aware of how we engage with the world and then what's going on in our brain, right? So I just mentioned two things. I mentioned our reality, our world, and then what's going on in our brain. And so the two really interact, and we have to work on both of them. And if we do this in a successful way, if we're very intentional in how we engage in the world, then we can live a very enjoyable, meaningful life at this stage of life too, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was also, I just thought about something else. I had this conversation. This woman, she had retired, and she's also from her mobility was a little bit, she had problems with her mobility. Um, and she was complaining that her girls don't, she has two daughters, and they don't visit her enough, and they don't love her enough, and she feels all alone, and this is what happens. Like, she was kvetching. She was really, really
Yeah.
upset, and she got herself into this really, really dark mode. Um, she even had thoughts of I'm not gonna, I'm taking them off my will. She had an appointment with me. Let's just take them off the will. And it's like, let's just take a step back. And I started like thinking about she was very upset also with herself because she couldn't move very far. So she wasn't mobile. So she couldn't get herself into a taxi or get herself in the car and just drive. She had like these issues, and she felt like she's stuck. And she had a friend, and her friend suddenly introduced her to this there was this I don't know, there was this thing suddenly, like, project for making stuffed animals for hospitals for the
Oh,
children's ward.
lovely. That's so sweet.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she actually knew how to sew and crochet. She was very good at it.
Ah, perfect.
So her friend introduced her to that, and she took her with her to buy, like, the things that she needs for that, the yarn and whatever. And I spoke to her like 3 months later, and totally different person.
That's
Like,
a success story. I'm so happy. Let's unpack that, right? So here it is, she's home alone. Naturally, our children, children are busy. They're not going to be able to call us as much as we want, or to visit as much as we want. I don't think there's, that ever happens, like you're coming too much. Don't come. There's always, we always want to see our children. We spend so much time with them, and then when they, when we're not with them, we miss them. So it's understandable. So she starts to have dark thoughts, right? So the dark thoughts about her kids, and then dark thoughts about, what am I doing in life? How am I positively impacting my life? What is the value that I put into this world? We always have that in our heads, always judging ourselves, constantly judging ourselves in terms of, how am I positively impacting the world? What am I doing? And that's why also we love, right? The whole idea of, it's better to give than to receive, right? Like that whole thing, because you feel good when you're giving. It
absolutely,
validates your self-worth.
absolutely,
It validates that you have value, that you should be here, right? So she, so she's kind of having doubting that kind of self-worth, doubting, having very critical judgments of self. And then she gets to be in a bad mood, right? Thank goodness this friend came along and showed her this project. How much meaning does it have? How much purpose does it give? Look how I'm positively impacting. Look how she's positively impacting her environment by making these dolls, so that these little kids, who doesn't like to have a stuffed animal when they're feeling scared, and it's just that perfect kind of way, especially if she was a sewer, ideal way to kind of be able to be there, and to give to something, and of course that would turn around, because here she is, she's producing all of these things, giving them away, and then she says, I'm helping other people. That feels good. I'm a good person. I have value. And then that thought turns into an emotion of pride, of happiness, feeds self-worth, positive emotion. Then she's happy. She's happier. She's going on and having a great life. It could
absolutely.
be, you could find, people always say to me, but there's certain circumstances I won't be able to find the purpose. There's always a way to find purpose. When I was working in the rehabs, I got to work with this one woman who actually was a permanent resident. Um, she was a permanent resident in the facility. She had MS, and she could barely lift a finger. I remember when I used to come in, she'd be like, "Oh, you're here. I'm glad. Can you just scratch my nose?" She couldn't even do anything, and all of the aides, they used to come in and they would do everything for her. They'd feed her and everything, and she would say to me, "What's the point of me living? What's the point?" And she was fully like, she couldn't do anything, but she would say like, "I don't get it. I'm tortured. I'm tortured here." And I said, "There's a point. There's a reason for life. Let's make life meaningful." And she was such a lovely person. She was so delightful to be with. And I said to her, "What if you made all these aids that help you feel good about themselves? That's your mission. That's your job." Because I could tell she could do this. She was such a lovely person. I said, "Listen to them, talk to them, tell them thank you, tell them how much you appreciate them." And she developed a relationship with a lot of these aides. These aides, they went from like kind of cynical to very, very positive. They loved her. I remember they used to distribute in the morning. They used to distribute assignments to the aides. Everyone would want room 214. Everyone would want 214, because they would want to care for her, because she was so good to them, and it was almost like being in a therapy session with her. And in the end, also had another patient across the way who was also depressed, and she was fighting with the aides. And I said, put her in 214's wing, because they were all in such a good mood from that patient, that wing was rocking, all because of her. Look how impactful she was. You know, Here it is. She was what we call total care, but she positively impacted her environment in this significant way, that whole wing of that whole nursing facility was happy, was warm and kind and loving to one another. It was beautiful to see. She couldn't lift a finger. She couldn't do anything, but that's what she did. She changed that whole wing. And so we have this ability to impact our environment positively. We just have to figure out what it is. And I work with patients a lot on this. I work with patients ranging from, someone that is a retired dentist that went back to their dental school and now reviews in Columbia University. Well, maybe I said too much. Reviews the applications for dentists for applying dentists, or um, a retired librarian who now works at Yad Vashem and helps people do research. All of these things so impactful, and people take on these projects, right? Understanding that, what is my strength? What do I have at my core self that I give to other people to make their lives better? And their lives being better will make me happy, and then my life will be better. And so I work with people just understanding who they are, understanding how their mind works, what's going on, what their strengths are, and then figuring out how to engage with their environment in this positive way, in this very meaningful way, that they could then reinterpret it as having as their purpose, and then feel joy and have it feed into their self-worth.
So nice. That's such a nice thing to do.
I love it. I do.
I could tell that you really, really love what you're doing. That is very, very, you could see that. Um, Tell me a little bit about teletherapy and how does it contrast to in-person therapy? Because I know you do both.
Right. Yeah, people ask me this question a lot. So, because of Corona, before Corona, I would work in a lot of rehab centers. And during Corona, I had to transition out. I had to transition out of the rehabs because they insisted that we wear a spacesuit, and it's really hard to do therapy with a spacesuit on. Even to have someone hear you, it's just impossible. So I tried teletherapy, and at first I was hesitant, but you know what? There's so many advantages to it. And I really love the whole teletherapy practice. A lot of times I speak to other therapists who will explain to me, I always have cancellations on a rainy day. I always have cancellations. Because people just don't want to get out of bed. Here, it's an easy kind of scenario. It's very comfortable. A lot of people have pets. They'll be kind of talking to me and petting their cat or petting their dog on their lap. Very happy, very comfortable. And the relationships I have with them are very, very comfortable and intimate, and it really has a smooth transition. I think they did some research as because so many people transitioned to teletherapy after Corona, and they identified it's like 95% effective as in person. So it
Wow.
works. Yeah.
Okay. I know you also offer, you told me, we spoke a little bit, you said you offer interactive lectures. Can you a little bit explain what that is?
So I started working, especially during Corona. A lot of people were at home, were stuck at home, and I started running groups online. And part of the group was I wanted the groups to have direction. I wanted them to really benefit and learn something, not to just be a complaining, what do they call it, a whining situation. So I started giving these more like psychoeducational interactive lectures where um, I'll bring a topic to to this discussion group, and we'll talk about it, and I'll give all the research about it, and explain it in layman terms so they understand it. For example, like the topic of meditation, or the topic of mindfulness, or the topic of anxiety. We'll talk about it. I'll explain everything, and then we'll talk about it, and everyone will bring their examples, and really we kind of unpack it together. And it's not just kind of the group isn't just someone sitting there complaining. It's really about everyone understanding the problem, understanding the interventions that we can apply, and really benefiting greatly from these interactive lectures. I also offer different lectures. I did a lecture, someone for a Jewish organization on what's it called? It was It was um, about quotes from Jewish sages. I rhymed it. It was like quotes and quotes from Jewish sages, and how the whole process of psychotherapy and all the knowledge and the understanding of psychotherapy, the Jewish sages knew about all of these things years and no centuries and centuries ago. And I brought proof from all of these quotes that the Jewish sages spoke about, and it was fun to kind of hear what like David Hamelach spoke about, or Shlomo Melch spoke about these kind of insights, and it was exciting to have that kind of lecture. But I give all kinds of interactive lectures. I'm currently working on an interactive lecture on Aliyah, and how, from a strengths perspective, understanding how we were so flexible for Aliyah, and because of that, this current third stage of our life, will be easy for us because we went through this huge transition of aliyah, that this third stage of life is something that most of us will be able to come out come out with success.
That's actually true. That's so true. And now to think about it, a lot of clients that came in their late 60s, early 70s, and now they're in their 80s, they actually can, deal with things much easier. Maybe because they made Aliyah later in their life. They had the challenges then. So now they feel like, if there's a challenge, we did it then, we can do it now too.
Yeah, it's a total idea of like being flexible and how important it is to kind of understand if your reality changes, you have to figure out how to change with your reality, and that's the reality of moving to Israel. That's the change, and we had to figure out how to change, how to be flexible to accept the new and modify how we interact with our reality, And the same thing as we get older, our reality is going to change. We're going to, let's say, we're not going to walk as well. And we have to modify how we deal with that. We have to modify how we interact with that problem. We use a cane, or we, rely on transportation more as opposed to walking all over. So, it's just that has that same kind of idea. And to see, when you see things through these other lenses, through these other perspectives, it makes you understand, makes you have be more forgiving to self and forgiving of the situation, and then you can more easily kind of you're and when you're more understanding, forgiving to self, forgiving to the situation, your thoughts are kind of not as harsh, your emotions are not as extreme, right? Your thoughts of, let's say, oh, I understand, everyone's going through this kind of like slowing down process. It's not just me. I have to accept this is life, but I'm lucky I could still get around, even if it is with the cane, you know? And then emotion, that's a moderate kind of way of looking at things. Emotions of, you know, hope and acceptance, right? And then it goes right into come a more accepting mood, a more mild mood. So
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of examples, but I'm just wondering if there's something like an intervention or two that you found in particularly effective that you'd like to share with us.
Mm. Two interventions that I think are very helpful. So we speak always about the thought loop, right? We have a thought, a scenario comes our way. We think about it, right? We use judgment on it. We have an emotion, and then we put it in a mood, right? So, for example, we're going to have a thought on, let's say, the war, right? We have a thought on the war. It could be a range of thoughts, right? One thought on war could be, oh, it's almost over, an emotion of relief, and more positive mood. Or we can have a thought of war. This is going on forever. How are we going to ever get out of this? Emotion of fear, and that goes right into your mood, right? So a lot of times too, what we do is we have the same thought over and over again, right? And that's another topic for another day, but we call it a ruminating thought, right? People call it monkey brain, a lot of different ways to do it. I call it a ruminating thought, right? And so this ruminating thought, what we end up doing is we always think about it because we're looking for a solution. We're looking for a way, we're trying to figure out a way how to resolve the problem. And so what ends up happening is we think about it a lot. The truth is we probably have taken all the steps we needed to resolve it as much as we can resolve it. And it's usually like a waiting game, or things are beyond our control. But we think about it over and over again. And I always say to someone, imagine you have like a set of drawers in like a set of drawers in your brain, right? Imagine taking that thought or that concern, putting it in the drawer and shutting the drawer, right? Knowing that I'm not getting rid of the concern, I'm not getting rid of the thought. It's still there. I'm just taking a 3 hour break from it, right? Because that's 3 hours of not feeling fear, right? And it's so nice to have that break from not feeling fear, because how often do you have that thought that creates that emotion of fear? So to kind of what I say, put it in the drawer, shut the drawer, right? Shut the drawer for 3 hours. Every time you start to think of it, you say, oh, no, 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 it's in the drawer, and put it in the drawer and keep it in the drawer for 3 hours. And that's 3 hours that you're good to yourself, that you're taking a break from those darker thoughts of the fear. It's a nice way to kind of, it's a nice way to figure out how to compartmentalize. And everyone likes a nice wardrobe
Yes, that's true.
furniture.
That's
People
true.
like to joke, oh, I need a walk-in closet. I'm like, okay. But we call that the draw method. So it's a good method. People like it. Another method right? We always talk about, right? Remember how we talk about the thought loop, thoughts creating the emotions that put you in a certain mood, right? What if, though, we have these darker thoughts and we're in a bad, when it creates these emotions, but they're legitimate emotions. It's true. Like if we think about the war, it's understandable we'll get upset, right? We like to validate the feeling, but then we say, I'm guarding my mood. I'm protecting the mood. I can feel this way for a moment from that thought, but in general, I protect my mood. I guard my mood. I'm going to make sure I'm in a good mood and being focused on that mood. And some people can't really conceptualize the mood so well. So I just say, I'm committing myself to having a great day. I'm going to make sure my day is lovely and pleasant. Even though I'm concerned about the war, I'm still going to make sure my day is lovely and pleasant. A lot of times we can't change our reality. We can't change the world. We can change how we think about the world. And that's so powerful. It really means something.
So true. That is so true. We can't change the world, but we can change how we think about it. That is true. That is true.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Well, we can only try, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so how can people reach you, Sarah? If people have questions or things that want to, what do they need to do?
Well, they could contact, we're going to put out my phone number and my email, right?
Yes. But for the
Right.
sake of people that are going to listen to this as a podcast, why don't you just give your number now?
Okay. So it's 054-383-0898. And it's S. Hiller at Center for Purposeful Aging. And you could go on my website. We have some kind of ideas there and some articles you could check out. It's Center for Purposeful Aging. And it's an
A
exciting
beautiful
time. And it's
website. I enjoyed it very much. So
Thank you. It's an exciting time to be at this third stage of life, and really people have to embrace it. And that's a great if you embrace it, you live a good life. And it's very, very doable and it's an opportunity and you can't miss out on it.
absolutely. And you only have one, so you might as well use it and use it well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this was lovely. This was really, really lovely. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for all the people that joined us. I hope you are in a better mood because I am definitely in a better mood, actually, just from speaking to Sarah. I wish you all a good night. Stay safe, and looking forward to seeing you in my next podcast. Bye bye now.